Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2019. And today we are going to be sharing our very first interview of the year. And this time it's with another fan of Adventures in Odyssey. And this fan is probably well known to most people on there on the interwebs. He is one of the co-hosts of the Adventures in Odyssey Wiki Podcast and the creator of AIO Audio News, Lee Acim. Welcome, Lee.
Hey, thanks, Austin. Thanks for having me on the Adventures in Odyssey blog.
Well, let's start out at the very beginning. When did you first listen to AIO, and what were your first impressions of it?
Oh boy. Well, for this question, I have to go really way back because as far as I can remember, I've always listened to Odyssey. My family was listening to Odyssey even before I was born. My mom had known about Odyssey for a long time, and it was just natural that I would start listening to it. But I think the first episodes I heard were a sampler CD that had Do or Die It on it, which was really good, and the Hall of Faith album from Bible Eyewitness, and the Drive Time CD, that set with the beginning of the beginning of Eugene and Bernard's road trip, and the Flash Flood episode, that one. And those episodes were really classics for me, and I really loved them. But since I was so young, I didn't fully understand what was going on behind the episodes. I just really enjoyed hearing them. So those were my first impressions that I can remember of Odyssey.
Yeah, I kind of have a similar experience where it's basically I've heard it since I was born pretty much, but it took a while for me to actually recognize, oh yeah, that's Odyssey. Just want to interject a little fun story here for those listening. Tasha, my sister, unfortunately she's not here today to talk with us. Her first child, Brianna, my first niece, she actually, Tasha shared the story with me the other day. Brianna wouldn't go to sleep. She's about 4 months old. She could hear mommy and daddy talking, and she wouldn't go to sleep. And so I believe her dad turned on an episode of Adventures in Odyssey, and she went right to sleep pretty much.
There you go.
So I thought that was pretty funny.
That is funny.
So when did you first start getting into Adventures in Odyssey and like really understanding it and appreciating it?
Well, I don't remember a lot after that point when I was hearing those earlier episodes, but then I got the official guide, the original one, and then I got the 25th birthday edition guide, and at that point I realized that there are actually episodes of Odyssey still being made, and one of those was Push the Red Button, the aired version. I looked in the guide for album 56, and I saw that Push the Red Button had aired that very day, and on that day I received the CD album of album 56, and I thought, whoa, this is cool, they're still doing these things. So I got a little bit more into it. I found some friends who liked it. I heard album 57, and then I went to Colorado Springs on kind of like a vacation or something, and I met Nathan Hubler, who toured me around the place, and I got really into Odyssey. He gave me some inside info, which I then went and divulged on AIO Wiki, and that's how I found out about AIO Wiki. And then I got the Adventures in Odyssey Club the year after that, and so on and so forth. And when I got the club, I went back and I listened to all those episodes that I had heard when I was younger, and I got a little bit more of the context, and I was able to appreciate them more. So it's been maybe about 4 or 5 years that I've been really deep into the series.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, the club is very handy for people wanting to go to the very beginning. I know on one of the latest Audio Theater Central podcasts, there was somebody that was asking about where to start listening to Odyssey, and I guess there's really no perfect way to start listening because most people, I think, like us, kind of just listen to it at some point, and it's not really a concentrated effort to listen to it at the very beginning or before certain episodes.
So you brought up an interesting point. I don't know if you've seen this before. I've been working on a project on the wiki. I finished it about maybe 6 months ago. It's something that catalogs where all the episodes fit in each of the albums. And I realized that you can break them up so that the first album is a good starting point, but also the fourth album is a good starting point. And then a while later, album 19, the one where Eugene meets Katrina, is a good starting point. And then a little while later, album 28 or 29, where Wit returns, is a good album to start. Because in each of those albums, the storylines from the previous albums are wrapped up, and they start to make new storylines. So that I thought that would be, they kind of say start with album 1 or album 51, but I think maybe there are a couple other places where you can start.
Yeah, that's really cool and handy. I'll make sure to link that in the description of this video. So you're talking about the Adventure Odyssey Wiki. Do you remember what your first edit was on the Adventure Odyssey Wikipedia?
It was a very, very small edit. I went to the main discussion page, the town hall on the wiki, and responded to a discussion that was about 5 months old and resolved by that point, and said, it's not a problem anymore. So it wasn't important at all. Didn't have anything to do with anything. But that was my first edit on the AIO Wiki town hall.
Well, for those that don't know, Lee is one of the main people that works on the Adventure Odyssey Wikipedia and has made it quite an exhaustive resource for Odyssey fans. If you've never checked out that website, you really need to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there. You can spend a lot of time there.
Well, speaking of the AIO Wiki, can you tell us how you came about to create the Adventure Odyssey Wikipedia podcast? And also later your website, AIO Audio News.
Oh, goodness. Okay, this is a longer story. First off, it's interesting you call it the Adventures in Odyssey Wikipedia Podcast. I just call it, one word, AIO Wiki Podcast, because I'm lazy or because I don't know how else to spell it. But I was thinking there are all these different websites, these Odyssey fan sites that have podcasts, like the Odyssey Scoopcast, the like your podcast, the Adventures in Odyssey Blogcast. They all have these cool names, but AIO Wiki doesn't have a podcast. So I thought, what if I made an AIO Wiki podcast? And I thought about the idea. I thought, what could I do for it? I asked another user who was Arista, who is my co-host, to see if she want to co-host, and she said, yeah, I'll do it. So I wrote up a script, and I thought, well, what am I going to base this on? And I thought, well, I'll just talk about what's happening at Odyssey lately. So I talked about Album 63 and the new club episodes that were going to come out, the Get in the Show contest, the cruise, and that was enough material to fill in about 8 minutes of a podcast. So that I had the idea, so I went to the wiki, and the AIO Wiki has a poll feature. So for that poll, for I think it was maybe March 2017, I put up a poll saying, Scientific Guy, which is my username on AIO Wiki, is thinking about making an AIO Wiki podcast. What do you think? And I put a scale of 1 to 10, and the number 11 above 10, and the word what right below 1. And what, I think, got maybe 45% of the vote. So I'm not sure, but I think the people who voted were interested in the podcast. So I made the podcast, got everything together, and released it, and I got a couple good replies. So that was the beginning of the podcast. Just something that I threw together. Hey, if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then, well, I tried. Well,
I think you and Naverse have done a very good job with it. And actually, you talked about the Odyssey Scoopcast, and it sounds like almost like the early version of the podcast was kind of like how the early version of the Scoopcast is, like, basically for those who don't have time to read, like the early beginnings of the Scoopcast.
Yeah.
Which I enjoyed that because it was more of just the news itself was like a little bit more in depth than the Scoopcast. The way it's edited, it's very easy to listen to, and it's very, for like some videos like Kevin McCreary's like Say Goodnight Kevin or Blimey Cow, I think it kind of has that kind of that rhythm or that speed to it, so it's very easy to listen to and it moves along very quickly. So I want to say good job on the podcast. You and Versa do a really great job.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, especially coming from you.
So when did you start doing AIO Audio News?
AIO Audio News was April 2018, so it hasn't been around that long. And really quick tidbit, not a lot of people know this, but the AIO Wiki Podcast and AIO Audio News are reversed. The AIO Wiki Podcast should have been Audio News, and Audio News should have been the podcast, because the podcast I originally started out talking about news. But then the AIO Wiki Podcast turned into a review podcast, which is what we've been doing, reviews and an occasional interview. The reason I wanted news to be the format of the AIO Wiki Podcast is because AIO Wiki is a collection of information. But because it takes so long to edit, and because there are so many parts of the podcast to edit, it takes way too long to put them out. So what's news when I start writing the podcast isn't news by the time I release the podcast. So I thought, what if I did a website kind of like what I originally wanted the podcast to be, just little segments of audio that had Adventures in Odyssey news in them. And I thought, oh, let's come up with a catchy name, Audio News. And I released that. And I had made some connections with a couple other Odyssey fans like Gracie Marciani and Hope, who are doing the Welcome to Odyssey blog on WordPress. And they gave me some support for that website. And that website, surprisingly, is more popular than the podcast. I seem, for some reason, I get more likes on Audio News than I do on the AIO Wiki Podcast, which is really strange, but it's very encouraging to say that it seems to have worked, and I'm having fun with it. It's a way for me to keep track of all the news that comes out. So that was my idea behind Audio News.
I think maybe one of the reasons, maybe the popularity of Audio News is that it's shorter and it's easy for someone to get like a quick snapshot of what's going on in Odyssey rather than like reading through a ton of text. I enjoy listening to it as well, and I like reading posts from like AIO Update and stuff like that too. But Audio News, I'm a fan of audio, so I in some cases I prefer getting my news that way.
What's funny is that the Odyssey Scoopcast says that they're the latest in Odyssey news for those who don't have time to read, but I think that title more belongs to AIO Audio News because, well, I mean, the Scoopcast. Guys, get on the Scoopcast. Come on, make another one. It's been a while.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's interesting to see how podcasts and websites can like kind of transform after a while from like its early creation, and it's a fun process.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, like even with your podcast and I don't know, the Ceiling Fan and other ones. I mean, Audio Theater Central's kind of stayed the same, but I'd say most podcasts when going through the first trial period kind of morph into what they eventually become, and that's a very good product a lot of the time.
Yep, I agree. Now, I know you've heard a lot of Adventure in Odyssey episodes, but some people may not realize there are some episodes of Odyssey that were never fully produced or ever really released, which you can find a list of these on the AIO Wiki, by the way. Which truly lost episode of AIO would you most like to hear?
So of the unproduced lost episodes, I would say maybe I really want to hear A J in the Life, because I heard that was the winner of the Odyssey Scholarship Contest, I think. It was going to be in Album 57, but the reason I want to hear it is because the Odyssey team didn't record it because it would take characters in directions they didn't want them to go. I'm interested to see what directions those would be. Another one that I want to hear is Sideways, which is a 9-part episode that Paul McCusker said he was writing, and that was going to be based on Olivia Parker's experience in the Room of Consequence during the Ties That Bind, something that I really, really wanted to hear, but then it never happened, and Paul McCusker left, and I would really want to see that script, or even maybe hear the episode.
Well, since Paul did come back to write and direct The Long End, maybe we'll actually hear that someday.
Yeah, hopefully. Maybe as a book series, though. Maybe if not an audio drama.
Yep. Speaking of wishes for Odyssey, if you could have one character come back on the show, who would it be?
Bart Rathbone. Because I really like the Rathbones. They were great characters. Some people didn't like that they were around for so long, and I kind of agree a little bit. But I think with a guy like Bart Rathbone, he's kind of the guy who can just hang around Odyssey as long as he wants, and you can always put him in interesting situations. Some of my favorite episodes are Bart Rathbone's episodes. He was just so well developed, and he was so funny. It would be really good to have him back on the show. Maybe just have the Electric Palace. I'd like to see what Bart Rathbone would sound like in the new Odyssey episodes. Did
you like Robert Easton's replacement for Walker Edmondson, or do you think they should have had someone else play Bart?
This is a really tough question. I'm gonna say yeah. I think that Robert Easton was okay as Bart, because Album 50 was one of the earliest albums I heard, and when I heard it, I thought, okay, that just logically follows that this guy is Bart Rathbone, and so I'm used to his voice being Bart in that episode. I think, in a long-term basis, they should have had somebody with a bit more depth to his voice, or a little bit more warmth to his voice, be Bart, because Robert Easton is good in that episode as a funny Bart, but I think to have Bart's character development, they would have to have somebody a little bit different.
Yeah, I think he did an okay job. I know there was a lot of negativity from some people when they first came out, but I actually thought he did a pretty good job. But it's probably a good idea they didn't go with him as a long term, because they probably had to replace him or get rid of his character later, because unfortunately, Robert Easton died, I think, a few years ago.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear about that. It's too bad.
Yeah. Now, here's probably another tough question. Which version of the AIO theme song is your favorite?
I looked this up on the wiki, and I heard all the themes, and I'd say the version from 1990 to 1991, which is the theme during the Officer Harley remake episodes.
Wasn't it the theme song that they used after they stopped using, like, Wit saying, let's see if this thing works?
Oh, no, that was actually, those episodes are the ones where the invention actually works.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one. Although there were one or two that they remade, and Wit says, okay, back to the old drawing board, or something like that. But I think that theme, closely followed by the original theme, are my favorite themes.
Well, speaking of theme songs, I was thinking about this the other day. Usually, the original theme song in the past has taken maybe 3 to 5 years or so, and then they came out with a new theme, and it's been, about 9 years since the new theme started, so I'm wondering if they'll be redoing the Odyssey theme anytime soon.
Another funny thing about that is that the theme actually has changed since album 51. It's extremely subtle, but if you listen to the audio in the background, either while Chris is talking or right before then, you can hear in the earlier episodes, album 51, 53, that the theme is a little bit more, space age music, and then in the latest album, 65, it's a bit more orchestral, if that makes sense. I don't know how to describe it, but there's a tiny, tiny difference between the two themes.
Wow, I would have never noticed that. I know they use sometimes, which I am glad when they use it, some of like the different character introductions.
Yeah.
And they've recorded a couple of those, like with Wooten and a redo with Eugene and Connie, I think.
I don't know. There was a Connie one. The Eugene one was used, I think, in The Long End and Child's Play. I know those. But I think Connie was only in Walk This Way. But I'm probably wrong about that. And then Wooten was in Like a Good Neighbor. And then they should use it more often because I'm getting a little bit tired of just Wit.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they use Wit, sometimes they use Chris, and sometimes they don't have much of an introduction at all, depending on like the space or the timing of the episode, like how long it is.
Yeah.
Now, I know I might upset some people with this next question.
Uh-oh.
If Odyssey was a real town, and yes, I know it's real to a lot of people, but if Odyssey was a real town, what would be the first thing you would do there?
Well, you kind of answered my question because Odyssey is a real town. It's my town, it's your town. The people are just different, but anyway, everyone knows that already. If Odyssey was the town described in the radio series, I would go to Wits End, get a Wad Fam Chocksod, and get an ice cream skyscraper and eat them, which would probably be good. I don't know. There are a lot of things you can do at Wits End or in Odyssey, but I think Wits End is the central place, so I'd want to go there and hang out, see what the ice cream's like.
Yeah. Well, for me, it would be go take Imagination Station Adventure. That was one thing that just fascinated me, and I was thinking, oh, it'd be so cool if we go focus on the feeling that Imagination Station. And
yeah,
when I was a kid, I didn't really think that much. Like, okay, that's not really feasible. But I was kind of like a dream, even though I probably didn't believe it that much. Like, it would be kind of cool if that could happen.
Well, Focus on the Family does have an Imagination Station. It's the elevator.
Yeah. When I was there for the Get in the Show event, took a video on their set, and I just lamented the fact that the only place that it goes is up and down, not back in time.
Good point. I would honestly kind of be scared to get in the Imagination Station. Like, all the episodes where the characters don't realize what it is. Like Digger Digwell, he thinks he's in real life, but then he's thinking, why are these people dressed in robes? And I would just be really weirded out by everyone there. I wouldn't really know what to say. Although it would be fun. It would be fun.
Yeah. Well, I know this is kind of a plug here, but there's been times that I've really listened to some episodes of some radio dramas, and it kind of pulls me into the story. It almost feels like I'm there. I'm not sure if you've heard this yet, but there's a new audio drama series called Come and See.
Oh, no, I haven't heard that yet.
It's been featured on Audio Theater Central, and they did an interview with the creator of it, but it's basically a audio drama series that basically makes you a character in the times of Jesus when he was here on Earth. And like people talk to you like you're part of the crowd there, instead of you just being like a person just viewing what's happening. And it's made to be like listened to in headphones, so you can hear like all the panning and like things going around your head. Like the first episode or the first chapter starts like with at the banks of the Jordan, hearing John the Baptist, you have some of the disciples around you, and you have like a fly buzzing around your head. And the first time I heard the first chapter, I was in bed and I had my headphones in. I was listening to it, and it's the closest thing I've ever gotten to going back in time in the imagination station, because when you have just your eyes closed for the entire thing and the way they have it set up, it really makes you feel like you're there.
Wow, that sounds like something else. I mean, if not the imagination station, then the environment enhancer.
Oh yeah, that too. That probably sounds closest to reality. Now, this is probably kind of a difficult question too, but it's probably not as difficult as favorite episode. But what is your favorite saga or story arc on AIO?
Well, we had a discussion a while back about the sagas where we were talking, the two of us were talking about Novacom, and we were talking about the case of the disappearing Hortons. And I look back on that conversation, I think, Lee, why were you so stupid then? Because you say the case of the disappearing Hortons is your favorite Bob Hoose episode, and I say Sir Buddy's Snowy Day is my favorite Bob Hoose episode. And I think about that, and like, there was no objective thought behind that at all. But now that I've actually had some time to think about it, my favorite saga, I had to put a lot of thought into this, I would say is the Maury Rydell saga. But it's, although it seems like, since it's really new, that there's no objective thought behind it. But with all the old sagas like Novacom and Blackguard, I know how they end. I know the whole story. I've already heard it multiple times. But with Maury, I'm right in the middle of what's going on. I don't know what the end is going to hold. I think right now I would say Maury, because that's the one that draws me in the most. And also because I accidentally heard the Aftermath episodes of Novacom before I heard the main Novacom arc, which...
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah, that doesn't work. But I would say, besides Maury, if that's not a valid answer, then I like Novacom, because it's such a short time period, and because Paul McCusker's plot devising is very well done.
So, you were one of the fortunate few to be able to go into the Focus on the Family cruise about 2 years ago, and got to see the Adventure Odyssey live show there. Can you tell us some about your experiences on it?
Wow. Well, in the words of Grayson Smith, it was something else. The whole experience is something that I remember very vividly, especially for time that was back in 2017. Everything was just so remarkable. The trip there, the airplane ride down to Florida, and the whole boarding process. The people at Disney are just so nice. And seeing the ship in the dock and walking up, getting my picture taken, going through, and then seeing in the lobby the Adventures in Odyssey logo just splashed up there next to the Disney logo, which was just great. And seeing all the there were Adventures in Odyssey stickers on the portholes that are on the side of the ship. And I would walk around and I would look at a couple of them. One of them was Swept Away Part 2. Another one was the Under the Surface art, and that album hadn't been released yet. So I took a picture of myself next to that, and seeing the I don't know, the ship was great. And I think there are 4 of those ships. But then seeing the actors walking around the ship, just randomly, I would run into them. Like, I remember seeing Katie Lee and Will Ryan and Chuck Bolte and Grayson Smith in the checkout line at the theater. And Chris, I think I ran into when I was coming off the ship. That was just really great to see. Hey, I know that person. I know you. If I had another chance to go on a cruise, I probably would, but it wouldn't be the same because all the actors wouldn't be there, and Odyssey's not there. Since Odyssey's there, I felt really at home there, which was great. But besides that, Disney did a remarkable job with their side of the cruise and the food, the big water slide that they have there. There was a show, a Broadway caliber show that they put on there on Monday night. And the couple hangouts, I made a lot of friends that I still keep up with. And guys, if you're listening to this, hi. People that I met from the cruise who I still talk to today. There was a time on Tuesday when I got to go to one of the Bahamian islands. It was called Blue Lagoon, very peaceful. Just got to sit in an inner tube and relax, then go to the beach and just take a nap. That was the highlight of the trip, taking a nap on the beach. And then Castaway Cay, which is Disney's beach. There's just so much there. It was so clean, such a great atmosphere. I got to take a bike ride with some of my friends all up and down the beach. It was amazing. It was great. Very restful there, very peaceful atmosphere. And then the Adventures in Odyssey events that were there, the live show, which I don't know. Actually, I haven't heard anyone else who was actually in attendance for the live show. which is sad because they can't see the second performance of the live show, which was actually very, very funny. And I can talk about that later if you want. But there was the other events, like Nathan Hubler hosted a trivia challenge. There was a Q&A with the actors, and that was really good. And an autograph session, which there are pictures and videos on the Odyssey blog and in some of the podcasts, going up and down the line, talking to the actors, saying hi to all of them, talking to them. I got to have a nice conversation with Phil Lawler about Iliad House and the Young Wit series and Blagger Chronicles and stuff like that. I talked to Grayson on the last night. I tracked him down and said, "Hi, Grayson, I am such and such," and stuff like that. I got to have breakfast with Bob Smithhauser on Tuesday morning. I saw him in the buffet. He was just sitting there eating, so I put my plate down next to his and had a little conversation with him, which was great. And all these memories make me think I want to do it again. In 30 years from now, if Odyssey does another one, I'm going to be on that ship.
Wow, sounds amazing. So were you part of the trivia contest? Because I'm pretty sure you would have aced that.
I wasn't. There were so many people in the lounge where they conducted the trivia challenge. And the way Nathan selected the kids who would go up is he just said, "Who wants to be the next person?" And everyone raised his hand. So I thought, well, I already know Nathan. I have a pretty solid connection with him already, so I'll just let somebody else go ahead. And I was able to answer some of the questions, but some of them I actually didn't know. I think one or two, I forget what. It took me like a couple seconds before I realized, oh wait, I don't know this question. One of them was like, what are the names of Tom's 3 horses? And that took me a while to remember. But a couple of the prizes of the trivia contest were, one, I forget what the first one is. The second was, if you listen to the episode Always Do Your Best-ish, there's a character named Warren. And Warren is the name of a boy who won round 2 of the trivia contest, which is really interesting. And the third one was a girl who won the final round of the trivia contest got the script for the live show the day before the live show was performed. So if there's a script floating around out there for the live show. So that was really cool just to see those questions. But yeah, I wasn't a part of it.
So, you were talking about the second live show. Is that the one they released a video of on the club, or is that the first show? No,
the thing was, there are tiny little differences between the first and the second. The first is the one that's on the club, and you can see all the video there. In the second live show, the differences that I remember are when, at the point where Shona is saying, "Oh, I think I'm going to quit the body," and Will Ryan goes, "Oh, quit the body, quit the body, quit the body, what are you thinking?" And then in the video, he just goes on with his line. But in the second live show, he said, "Quit the body, what are you thinking? Wait a minute." And then Will Ryan put down his script, marched across the stage, raised his finger, pointed it at Shona, and said, "What are you thinking?" And then walked back to his spot on the stage and sat back down. And that was just like, what is he doing? He didn't do that the first time. And then there were just a couple of tiny little things, but it was funny, the second one. But I don't know if Odyssey recorded that one. It was just really funny to see the different reactions between the actors.
Yeah, I was really excited they put the live show on the club there. And I was when I had heard that a lot of it was taking place like using the old sketches from old episodes of Odyssey, like they've used this before in a live show, but the way they adapted it to like the different characters and added some stuff to it, I didn't mind at all. It was a great show from what I saw.
One part that I really liked was the extra song, Will Ryan's "Sand, Nothing But Sand" song.
I think that's a song on one of his Country Cowboys albums, or one he did with the Soror Sisters or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Well, we've talked a lot about Adventures in Odyssey, but besides Adventures in Odyssey, what are some of your other favorite audio dramas to listen to?
Oh, my favorite audio dramas. Well, I don't listen to a lot other than Odyssey. I have heard a sampler CD from the Brinkman Adventures, which was a little different. It was well done though. I've heard the Radio Theater through the specials on the club. I'm currently listening to Oliver Twist on CD, and I can agree with J.D. Sutter that it is one of the best audio dramas of all time. I really like Little Women by Radio Theater. That's probably one of my favorites. other than that, I think the only other audio drama I've heard is Iliad House, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. It was very well done. It really drew me into the story. Phil Lawler did an excellent job with it. But those are the only really other audio dramas I've heard.
So, what other activities do you like doing besides listening to AIO or working on the wiki or the podcast?
Well, I am part of a speech organization. It's called STOA. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but we do platform speeches on specific topics, persuasive speeches, interpretations of books. So I'll get up and do like a reenactment of maybe an Odyssey book in some cases, or humorous speeches that can be funny, or dramatic speeches which can be very, very serious. I am involved through that in apologetics, which is short 6-minute speeches on explaining the faith, which is very nice. So that's that side of it. I also like to do music and activities related to music. I play violin and piano. I sing in a choir. I've been doing that for 8 years now. I have written a little bit of music. Every once in a while, I'll sit down at my piano and play a little melody and transcribe that into sheet music. I have written a string quartet piece for 2 violins and 2 cellos, and I am trying to get that performed somehow to kind of see what it sounds like in real life. I read several different book series. I've read the Lord of the Rings, the Harry Potter series, the Left Behind series, all of that. I really like reading those. I play tennis in the summer. There are a couple of people around my neighborhood I play with. I've played a couple of video games in the past. I'm trying to do less of that now, but I do that every once in a while. I have been in several plays, 3 in a theater company near me, and another one in a kind of workshop that I did summer 2017. And those have all been really fun. Plays are really fun to do because I get to see a lot of great talent in the actors, and in one of those I actually had a pretty big role, which was really nice to do. So those are my activities. Other than that, I eat, sleep, do school, and that's pretty much my whole day.
Well, it's been a great interview, Lee. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to us and for answering these questions, and it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much for having me on this interview. It's very different because I'm not on this side of the interview questions, so it's very much an honor to have you ask me to be here.